Well, since I am from southern U.S., we call it Purlieu, just to make our people a little happier. They're used to that kind of accent. And I will explain the name here in a moment. So this, I will tell you, I take a 30,000-foot view from strategy of how we can push open learning through to not only our faculty and our students, but also through K through 12, and what we could do with that. So there were a few of us who got together at the University of Florida in the College of Ed. We are a teaching college and are trying to influence our teachers to influence their students who are going out and teaching K through 12. So we started out with just working with them on what the difference was between learning online and learning in person, because this had a lot to do with this. So the online, the initial approach that they see is we're disconnected, we're completely separate. You're sitting there in front of your keyboard and you have no interaction with the other people. And that was one of the big issues with the teachers and their reluctance to move in this direction. You have to excuse me, I had a bit of a panic attack there a little bit ago. But I'll survive. So in online, in learning in person, what we have is something where we're working together. We have an open area that we can work in. We have this informal learning area. We call it our coffee shop learning because we do 90% at least of our learning outside of our formal classrooms. So it's all about location to most people. And like I said, this is a little game we played. That the College of Education in the University of Florida is right there. All right, so the strategy that we took, there was an OLCS COS roadmap that came out. It was in 2007, and they identified about the 3 primary areas that needed to be approached, and the idea was to make this occur by 2012. So what we did, this is the one that we picked on, was the teachers have little experience in how to effectively support communities of practice, and if we want these OER initiatives to grow based on user contributions, we have to get them willing to even try it. And when we started this, we had 2 online courses and no open content at all. So our formal learning takes place in the classroom. It's either in-person or online. At this point, we use Moodle, which is a learning management system that is open sourced. Informal or open learning, at the time we had nothing. Jay Cross says this is the unofficial, unscheduled, impromptu way people learn to do their jobs. And open learning appears to fit informal and open, work very well together. They're not exactly interchangeable terms, but they seem to work well. So our student body are primarily graduate students who are on their way to start teaching again. So Andragogy is our approach. And Andragogy is how adults learn, different from pedagogy. Since we're a K through 12 school, I've had graduate students who weren't even familiar with the term andragogy, that there was a distinction between the two. So I heard yesterday there was a talk about keeping this simple. So we had the big strategy idea. Then we came down and said, well, how do we keep it simple? What do our teachers need to be able to do this? So we identified 3 key areas. Competence. Am I comfortable with my learning environment? And that would be from the learner's perspective and from the teacher's perspective. Relatedness, the we part. Can I connect this to my peers? Can I connect this to my job somehow? And the third was autonomy. Do I call the shots? So our course management system, in the simplest form, it's just a tracking system. That's it. They're attempting to recreate the formal classroom experience in the online environment. So again, we've got this problem of they've taken this walled-in, what we call a course shell, pushed that out and said, okay, that's how we teach. And that's how people learn, is in this system. Lacks the space for any students to engage in open learning. Everything was behind the closed wall. We couldn't get to any of our material out onto the web. So it lacks the space for students to engage in informal learning. So that was the first thing we approached, was how do we do this? So this is my trapped in the shell, that being inside here, it's individual courses. The content doesn't transfer across these courses. The communication was stifled by formality. We had very little interaction between the students or the learners and the teachers and amongst our faculty. They tended to be in these little small groups. So we have a School of Teaching and Learning that they were wonderful because they want to learn about teaching and learning. Our Ed Psych department, not so much. Our administration department, and surprisingly, our research department is the least likely to use any of this material. And it's intentionally hierarchical, requires extra effort from the teacher, that inhibits this peer learning. And this department I was talking about has a very unique position in our school that they have forced everyone to go through this, through their system, because they are the people who handle qualitative and quantitative statistical analysis. Everyone has to take those courses, so you have to go through their courses, and therefore they put up some significant obstacles to achieving these goals. So we went to them and said, okay, here's what an informal environment would look like. Right? We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got YouTube, we've got Wikipedia. These are the ones that most of them knew. They were familiar with it. Wikipedia, they saw it as a horrible source because anybody could do anything with it, and that was bad to them. It hurt their hierarchical positions. So it came, how do we combine these? What do we do? Well, we brought up Purlieu. So the official definition for Purlieu is a place where a person has the right to come and go freely or has control. So that autonomy aspect of it. A person's usual haunts or bounds. But the reason we chose this is that there's another definition for it. In the 18th century, John Maynard in England was writing laws about the forest. And it was called the Treatise of the Forest. Well, the royal forest was locked in. You couldn't do anything unless you had the permission of whoever owned the forest, the royalty, the king, the noble, whoever had that. And then you had the wide open public domain forest that everybody was frightened to death of. They were afraid to go in there. So we drew these analogies to say, okay, here's the wide open web or open learning. And then we also have this closed in course system. What we needed was a transition area. So Purlieu is the transition area. That's the area in between the forest when John Maynard put this definition out, where you could define whether you had control, what was closed and open. You could determine what you wanted to do. So again, the autonomy, and then, go off on that one. Okay, so in Purlieu, the way we did it was we took Moodle, which was our learning management system, developed by an undergraduate student at the University of Florida, and we just set it in place. And the administration really had no idea what we were doing, and that was good. And we attacked it exactly like that. We use WordPress for our publications and for promoting our programs and our marketing. We use ELG. A lot of people probably aren't familiar with ELG. It's a social networking system similar to Ning. It's kind of a mashup between Ning and Drupal, I would say. And then Kaltura, which is a video media management system that you can create, remix, and have students develop content there to start the learner-to-learner peer process, and also trying to get our teachers to see that as a viable source when they start seeing what their learners are doing. It was surprising that since we had graduate students, these are practicing teachers, and our faculty were still fairly dismissive of anything that was coming up from that direction. They were the sage on the stage just delivering information to people. So one of the big obstacles at the University of Florida, it's a 50,000 student university. It's a very big university. It has a lot of organizational obstacles, and it took us 9 months just to get to the point that we could get what's LDAP and Shibboleth authentication through the system. But we managed to get it. One programmer working his tail off got through this. So we've combined all these into one single platform You log in once, you've got the whole thing, and you can access your formal course, you can access your informal course, and you can share the information if you so desire. So this is probably a bad picture, but that's basically what it looks like. The first part was Moodle. It's your My Courses dashboard. They land, they see the My Courses dashboard. The next thing we did was bring in the social networking side. We have community. We have an e-portfolio that pushes out in XML, and that was a significant barrier to break through because they had been talking about this holy grail of the e-portfolio that they could take and they could go to their schools and say, okay, here's all the coursework I did. Here's what I did. Here's how I did it. And then we have WordPress, which is our marketing communications program resources. Again, all these are open source systems that we're using. Our expenditure is minimal. We do this with 5 or 6 people immediately when we first started, and we've beefed up to 12. Now, this sustainability idea is sustainability of the open ed system, not necessarily the money, because we got very lucky. When we did our little guerrilla learning management system, we managed to get in our contract that we would get a percentage of DE money. We sat on that money for 4 years. We built up $2.5 million in our account, and then we just hired a bunch of people and took off after it. Again, she's going to love this, but the dean had no idea what was going on and still doesn't. She's also the one when I put in for this, I was not funded for this, and the comment was, who's he think he is, faculty? So you can imagine the obstacles we have, and yeah, she's fun. So media integration. This is our Kaltura system. So media management and editing. We did have a little issue with that. There are 2 systems in Kaltura. There's the service as a software system that they host, and then there's the one you host personally. We've just shifted to the one we host. We just got the SLA agreement back from Kaltura, and now we're pushing forward with that. So what my friend Ben Campbell, who is probably the person who drove this the hardest, he was there for 5 years by himself with 2 other administrators running the whole system. He kept this thing going until we reached this critical mass that we could move. He calls it a Swiss Army knife and a chocolate bar all wrapped together in one. So you can do everything you want with this. So the way this came about, which really fits the sustainability issue a little better, is that the cumulative effects of small measures. So in 2006, we started this. It was 5 graduate students who entered the educational technology program at the University of Florida. Dr. Rick Fertig was our advisor, and he told us, you want to make something happen, go make it happen. John Donaldson started Moodle as a project as a graduate student, built it up, got it going. He sat there and just managed that for a while we bided our time and let them see that, yes, this will work as online courses. We went from 2 online courses to now we have about 1,600 online courses. And that's in a matter of 3 years, with Ben being the only instructional designer there at the time. At that time, I was in Silicon Valley. I had left the campus. I had gone to work for the Internet Archive. I pulled a lot of information from the Internet Archive, and what I was doing there, I worked in the open education system trying to leverage their sources. Excuse me. And then we had 2 other people that were still in school. They just finished their doctorates. So now one of them is our director. One of them is a professor at Morehead State, still works with this. At the same time, the 5 of us went out, and for a total of $500, we started the exact same platform that we were talking about building in Florida. We started on our own. It's called Green Collar Solutions. And it was just designed to help people develop courses. 5? Okay. Design courses within those programs. We could use it as R&D, feed it back into the system. It operated outside of the system so we could play with it. Right now, the school's on Moodle 1.9. We're on Moodle 2.0, testing out everything so that as soon as it's time to go that way, we can just plug it in and run, and hopefully it will be seamless integration as best it could be. So that has continued to inform everything we've done. It also allows us a little bit of flexibility and freedom to get out and do work on our own, that like Google's 20% time. So the outcomes that came from this. College of Education, like I said, 1,600 courses. We now have about 130 open courses now that we're pushing out. And as part of what we were doing, we had two evangelists, myself and the aforementioned Ben Campbell. At the time, we were working with Dr. Randy Graff, who just happened to be well-positioned to determine what the school was going to go to after we decided Blackboard and WebCT were horrible. And we were going to go to that. So the entire university, all 50,000 students, now runs on Sakai. And that just happened this semester. So they've gone to that, they've seen our platform, and they've come to us and asked us to build community systems within theirs as well. Starting next month or February. In February, we will run a MOOC, massive online open course. Dr. Chris Sessoms and Dr. Wendy Drexler, recent graduates. Dr. Sessoms happens to be my roommate, so we evangelize to each other a lot about doing these things. So he begins that. I think David Wiley's taught one. He knows about this course, and there's one going on at Athabasca. They borrowed a little from us, but it's all worth borrowing, which I had to convince him of that. Oh, excuse me. So some lessons that I learned from this: do not ignore the small, limited results. Use those limited results. If you have an idea, we were not well positioned in the hierarchy. We were all master's students, and we just decided we were going to go make a change, and something was going to be different. This needed to shift. We see it as our school. Partly with me, my mother went to the same school here, my uncle, my grandfather, they all went there. I felt that it was something we needed to do. So the rest of them, it's a public school. It belongs to all of us. Let's get the information out there. Identify potential advocates like Dr. Graff. Money. Find a way to get some money. We figured out a strategy that worked underneath the system where we were able to get money. Dr. Dana, the person who ran our distance learning had no clue even what distance learning was. To this day, she still wants me to print on paper so she can see it look exactly online like it looks on paper. That's her goal. We got a new guy in, Dr. Dana. He said, yeah, make it happen, go. Just figure out what you can do. I've mentioned the dean as part of our obstacles, though she is getting better. I'm her designer, and she seems to enjoy that. And neutralizing the effects of the naysayers. With me, I just don't listen to them and just keep going. That doesn't always work, so I have colleagues who are a little more persuasive than I am. And expect significant resistance. They will come along. They will try and stop the big they, the royal they. They will throw obstacles in front of you, and if you're patient, in 5 years you can make it happen, or 4 years is what we did. So it's coming together. It will continue to grow, and we will see what happens. So that's the sustainability side of that.
Thank you, Baird. Any questions on this presentation? We have a few minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you get rid of FERPA issues with students who are having things in their private courses and then trying to release it publicly? Or is that
we have FERPA issues that we manage that on our end. We have a team of 12 people now, so we pretty much give advice to the faculty and talk to them about what they can release, what they can't release. Like when we're doing the videos, we've had film of the students in courses, so we've had to get their releases, and we had to manage the IP side and the FERPA side, mostly from our office, but they're getting better at it.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.